The Desmo450 MX by Ducati will soon be in dealerships, and today the Panigale manufacturer has announced more about the motocross bike in red. Yes, we have news on the Desmo450. Welcome back to Vital MX. I'm your host, Mike Lindsay, and as always, any of our news break features are brought to you by our fine friends at 6D Helmets. If you want to learn more about the third generational ODS or omnidirectional system that has been groundbreaking and class leading now since the helmet's introduction, you can check it out at 6dhelmets.com and learn how they can help make you safer on your next ride. Yes, we're talking about the Ducati 450 that we've seen race now. Last year in the Italian Championships took home that title, is now racing full-time in MXGP this year with Jeremy Sewer and Mattia Guadagnini. And it is soon to debut in countries all around the world for people to purchase. As of now, it looks like it will hit some European markets in June, and we expect it to hit the US market potentially late June, but more likely into early July. And we do have an MSRP. It is the most expensive motocross standard model, but not by as much as we expected. It comes in at $11,495. That isn't that much more, considering it's about 50 bucks more than a Husky, 150 bucks more than a KTM on the MSRP side of things. However, with some of the recent tariffs that are coming into play, we actually don't know if that sticks. I don't know enough about them. I don't know how that affects motorcycles. I don't know if most people know at this point. So for now, as of the info we have right now, that's what the US MSRP is set to debut at. Where does this put it up against some more of the competition? Well, the gas is $10,500, but then on the more reasonable side, you have the Sierra 450 at $9,700. You have the Yamaha at basically right under 10 grand, $9,999. The Suzuki is still the cheapest at $9,200. Yes, I know people get Suzukis for the cheaper. They have great rebates, but that is the MSRP on that motorcycle. Some of its other European competition, though, you have the Triumph at $10,955 MSRP, and the most expensive Japanese bike is the Kawasaki at $10,499. So $10,500. So again, Ducati is the most expensive, but it is much closer than we expected. This is more of a production model rollout than we initially expected. We kind of wondered if they would go for a very, initial launch that would have a lot of goodies on it. Nope, this is a clean production bike that they expect to sell in a decently higher quantity, and they've done their best to meet the needs and match most of their competition in the market. However, we did go through the configurator on the site, and there are things such as race triple clamps, race wheels, factory Brembo brakes, a full Krapovich exhaust system, things like that you can order with it, albeit pricing is not available for a lot of those items. But if you want to go on the site and play with the configurator, you can add them and see what they look like on the bike. Of course, down the road, we expect them to launch a special edition model, sort of maybe their own version of a factory edition, like we see them do with a lot of their higher end sport bike models. But for now, Sierra 450. So what are some of the things that make it unique, or where does it stack up with? First off, a couple of things we looked at engine-wise. It does come out with the same bore and stroke as a Sierra 450R, which isn't terribly shocking when you look at the chassis and the fact they were using a Sierra 450 as a comparison bike through a lot of their testing. It's 96 millimeters by 62.1. So that's basically what a Sierra 450 and the Desmo 450 is. Like a KTM group is 95 by 63.4, so only a little bit different. The Triumph is the same as the KTM. The Yamaha is, I believe, the largest bore at 97 by 60.8, according to my notes. Suzuki and Kawi are both 96 by 62.1. So sorry, they are the same as the Desmo and the Honda. Compression ratio is the same as Sierra 450. It's the highest listed in class at 13.5 to 1. A bunch of the competition is at 13 to 1, such as the KTM group bikes, I believe the Triumph. And then the Yamaha, the Kawi, and the Suzuki are 12 by 5 to 1. Weight-wise, it's middle to lowerish on the class. No fuel weight is listed as 231 pounds with no fuel. For instance, Yamaha is 230. The Kawi is, I believe, 238. The KTM is 228, and the Honda is 235 without fuel, from what I remember from my notes. Honda's 246 with fuel, KTM's 240, Kawi is 248, I believe. Yamaha is 240-ish, and the Ducati will be about 241, 242 with fuel. Some unique things, it is going to come with Pirelli tires. That is what they're racing in the GPs. That's what the production bike is coming with. The US race team, from what we're aware, will likely use Dunlops, though. It does come with a 110/90/19 rear, so not a full-size 120 like most of the competition, albeit the Triumph also comes with a 110 rear. A couple things they were surprisingly very open on their announcement with is kind of what they think their service intervals, because a lot of people I think are worried about the Desmo technology, and especially go back to the 90s, early 2000s Ducati sport bikes, how maintenance intensive that system is. Because if you don't know, it has a Desmodronic valve system. It does not use your standard buckets and keepers or rocker arms. It basically it kind of has a rocker arm system that basically opens and closes the valve mechanically with arms. It makes a bit of a taller motor, which also makes sense on why a Honda was partially used as a baseline bike, because the Unicam Honda engine, I believe, is the tallest 450 engine in class. So it gave them a baseline from a chassis where the engine sits, things of that nature. They're coming out and saying their oil and oil filter, this was kind of shocking to me, oil and oil filter change is 15 hours. Piston, 45 hours, pretty standard. Valve check, 45 hours, not surprising. And a full engine service, doesn't give details, I'm guessing that's a bottom end, is listed at 90 hours. Unique one is Ducati does list a warranty for this motorcycle of 3 months or 20 hours of use. It doesn't say yet how much that covers, but that's pretty unusual in our industry. A lot of brands list like a 30-day, very limited style warranty, so they have a little bit more there. That's kind of unique. Some things also that stand out for the bike beyond the other videos we've done, other than talking about the Desmo technology. Some of the things they point out, they say their frame is a bit on the unique side from a production standpoint because the entire frame is made of 11 components. They claim that is almost half of what most of their competition is using. So I feel like they've simplified and been able to take some weight out of their frame and the way they built it. A couple other things is electronics. It definitely is going to have a Wi-Fi module. It's going to have an app. That's all listed in there. Not detailed too much what's in the app, but we imagine the standard being able to adjust the maps, being able to adjust traction control settings, and they have some engine brake control stuff, which I'm really excited about. The KTM does have engine brake control, but only if you have the module and the fender, which either comes on the factory editions or you buy separately. It sounds like this is built into what's going to be their cluster, but you can change it. So yeah, electronics, we're going to have riding modes. We're going to have DTC, which is Ducati traction control, and this is a unique one. Yes, every OEM has some form of traction control now, but as I've been saying forever, traction control on dirt bikes is very different than street bikes and cars. Dirt bike ones they don't have front and rear wheel speed sensors. So they're not picking up usually wheel speed. They're going off pre-programmed parameters for RPM sense. So if it senses the crank and basically the rotating assembly has picked up speed very quickly, it will retard the mapping or change that power character to give it a form of traction control because it thinks the RPM spike shows that it's gone outside of its normal parameters. That is what most OEMs are using. Ducati doesn't go into too much detail, but they do claim that they are first in class in the motocross segment for having one that will be rear wheel based off rear wheel slippage and is patent pending. So they do say that's unique. The other thing is it says when the system is activated, it has off plus 4 forms of being on, plus you can modify in the map. If you want to disable at any point that it's on temporarily, just mid-corner you feel like it's cutting in too much, it says any pressure on the clutch lever, so there must be a sensor and a spring in there, will disable the traction control temporarily and then allow it to kick back in. I find that really unique. So again, other manufacturers, you're either on or off. This system can be on in a way you like it, but if you ever think it's being just a tick too intrusive, you can quickly disable it with just a little tap of the clutch. I'm curious to see how that works in person. And speaking of in person, we're going to Italy to test this motorcycle. Actually, I say that. I don't know where we're going yet. I believe it's Italy. I just know we're leaving the country. Typical American. I never know where I'm going. We are leaving, I believe, in about 7 weeks or so, 8 weeks, to test this motorcycle. Us and a group of US media outlets, I believe there's 4 of us from the US going, to get our hands on this bike for a first impression. So keep an eye out for that around the beginning of the pro motocross season. Getting back into the motorcycle, it also does have an engine braking management system, so you are able to adjust the engine braking system. Not shocking, being a little more common on their super bikes to have that kind of control. That's listed in the bike as part of the cluster and ability to change it on the map. And then it also has something called listed Ducati fall detection. This might sound unique, but a lot of OEMs do have a tip over sensor in the bike. They've become, I think, a little less common how active they are, but basically if the bike falls over and it's running on their side, some of the bikes have tip over sensors. They're as simple as maybe like a little ball in a channel, and if it sits on one side too long, it activates a kill function. Considering the Desmo unit is fairly sensitive, that valve train, you don't want the bike running on its side for too long because of oiling issues. So I can imagine the reason they list it, maybe that's just PR jargon. Wouldn't surprise me if it's maybe a tick more sensitive in some bikes. I could see why you don't want a bike to running on side. Great example, when I had a supercross team, a heavily modified CRF 250R, we had a rule. If the bike was laying on its side running, like guy crashes in the corner on a supercross track or something, or it's upside down, if it was running, I think we had a 5 Mississippi rule. If you count past 5 Mississippi and you got to the bike and it was still sitting there like running, particularly on a decent size throttle opening, we usually would pull that engine just because things happen when oil pressure isn't flowing correctly. That's kind of some of the initial PR stuff out. You'll probably seen stuff on the screen while I've been playing through this video. You can also click the link down below to go to our website to read the full press release, more of the jargon, and also learn about a few more of the details that make the Desmo450 MX unique. If you have any questions, any thoughts, anything that surprises you, throw it in the comments section below. We'd love to hear your guys' opinion. I'd also be curious, is anybody going to, in this group watching, are you going to go put a deposit on this motorcycle? Does it excite you? Does the fact that Ducati is entering this space, does it excite you at the end of the day? As always, thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, like, and we'll see you on the next one.